to shoot. Crossover. Up, under, and in! Houston and the Cougars with 33 wins and a number 3 seed are coming out of Tulsa, and they are heading to Kansas City in the Sweet 16.
It's over. The dream is alive for Houston. For the first time in 37 years, the Cougars are going to the Final Four.
Krisa gets it back. Three-pointer on its way. Air ball. Edwards has the rebound. An Arizona foul, and the Houston Cougars put a smile on the Dream's face.
Welcome to the Scott Holm Podcast, back here in the immediate lead up to the Sweet 16, but in our episode this week, we're going to discuss the Cougar happenings outside of Cougar men's basketball, but don't worry, we obviously have a big Cougar men's basketball game that is leading our slate tonight. If you haven't done so already, episode 1034, the most recent previous one in your feed, Bobby and I discussed in detail the 2 men's basketball NCAA tournament games from the past weekend. That was a not very dramatic and then very dramatic win in the round of 32 over Gonzaga. It's kind of been this program's thing to have dramatic round of 32 games and then a very undramatic 116 win over SIUE on Thursday. We discussed all of that there. Obviously, basketball is the leading topic, but this is still a very busy portion of the Cougar sports season. Bobby, this is my version of the flu game. I feel like you've done this more than me. And for anyone listening, don't worry. I'm drinking fluids. I am resting and staying at home. I'm doing mostly responsible stuff to try and get this better. Because I don't want my mom and or dad to be like, why are you podcasting of yourself? But I'm, like I told you before.
I love that you think our parents listen to this. I
know my dad does most of the time. So
my mom will listen to be nice and get our listen count up, which shout out there.
Yeah, appreciate you on that one, Mom. But to my point, I told you before we started recording, I am just absolutely dragging energy wise, but I'm still very excited to talk with you here about the latest happenings with the Houston Cougars, a postseason basketball game where this team is one of the very few left in the sport. Always a good occasion to come back. Bobby, how are you doing, friend?
Buddy, I am great. I actually got to play a little bit of golf yesterday, talking some Cougars. It's this weird time where you're so excited about a game coming up. And there's you've already kind of talked about the ones in the past. So we're going to preview the games, but there's just kid waiting for Christmas. And just a side note here, I always forget how much we struggle in round of 32 games. You brought it up pre-tournament, and then you just brought it up, and I saw your blue sky about it yesterday, I think, and I was like, we do always struggle in round of 32 games. They're always dramatic.
There's been some exceptions to the rule. I mean,
right.
But A&M last year, very stressful. Obviously, Michigan wasn't a happy ending in 2018. Rutgers in 2021. But Ohio State 2019 wasn't that bad. That was mostly a wire-to-wire win that we pulled away late on. I remember Dustin and I were out there in Tulsa for that one. 22 against Illinois, you pulled away late in that one. But yeah, this program, more often than not, for as good as they've been and as deep tournament runs as they've made, has had to, come back against Auburn where, I know he left us, but Tremont Mark is about the only thing standing in the way of you having your first pre-Sweet 16 exit in a number of years when he willed you to win 2 years ago in that one. So some dramatic ones. And thankfully, in the rear view, before we get to the meaty topics of this show, I've been remiss in not mentioning it, so I'll mention it here at the top. Patreon.com/SHpodcast, Patreon.com/SHpodcast that supports the work that Bobby and I do on a weekly basis. If you have some discretionary income that you are willing to part ways with to support this independent weekly 10 years running Houston Cougar podcast, Patreon, patreon.com/SHPAWDcast. And that would support the work that we do. And we would be, among other things, immensely appreciative for those of you who do that. Bob, let's talk about the Sweet 16 opponent that we got coming up Friday, 9 p.m. Yeah, making us wait literally later than anyone else for our Sweet 16 game against the Purdue Boilermakers. Quick aside, I just noticed that because I live in the western side of the country, and just when I noticed 7:07, I'm like, wait, it's not starting until like after 9 Central. I mean, like it's happened this year. Like I told you, it's a pretty minor thing, but this team has played some later night games, the late one at Baylor, at Arizona State, the Vegas game. So you know, it's not a new thing for this team. And playing the 4 seed of the Midwest region of the bracket, the Purdue Boilermakers, the closest thing this part of the region has to a home team. Purdue's campus is 65 to 70 miles from the arena. I would imagine Indianapolis is where a lot of Purdue alums currently live, or at least are originally from the metro area of. So outside of that, Bobby, outside of the surface level stuff, what have you learned that you would like to share about the Purdue Boilermakers?
Yeah, I mean, when you just kind of talk Purdue, I think the thing that kind of stood out to me when I was kind of looking at this is we're basically playing a worse version of Gonzaga, right? You kind of look at all the Ken Pom and all of those kind of metrics, and you look Purdue 7th in offensive rating, Gonzaga 6th. The defensive rating for Gonzaga, 33rd. Purdue, 55. So you see a lot of similarities in terms of where they rank on Ken Pom and things like that kind of make me go, okay, that's kind of interesting. Again, that Ken Pom matchup, or that Gonzaga matchup, according to Ken Pom, was insane. But, you look at their tempo, Purdue's tempo, they like to play at a slow pace. Not quite as slow as U of H, obviously, but a slower tempo, which I think is going to suit U of H really, really well going into the Sweet 16. And then you kind of look at some of their players. You have Trey Kaufman-Renn, who obviously is their leading scorer, 15 rebounds versus McNeese, 22 points. That's a pretty good stat line. No matter who you're playing, let alone a team that was that it did seem Purdue overmatched them a little bit, but a team that was trying to play Cinderella, going for 22 and 15, pretty good. It's going to be interesting to see how our bigs match up against him. You know, you kind of look at his height; he's 6'9". That's about our guy's size. So it's going to be interesting to see if you can keep Kaufman-Renn off the boards and keep him from scoring.
I didn't think about the Gonzaga-Purdue parallel until you said it, but a lot's there. Like, Gonzaga's a good shot-making team. Purdue's a good shot-making team. Gonzaga has a really high usage, but still efficient scoring big man, Kaufman-Renn, who you just got to talking about. Like, Purdue very much has that guy as well. Like Graham Ike on Gonzaga, one of the best big men. Like, it's out of the frying pan and into the fire in terms of facing a good big man. And there were times where Graham Ike really gave the Cougars problems in this past game. As much as I am a fan of the Cougar big men, like you're not getting any rest here, at least in terms of a big man could score the ball against you. One of the things that really jumped off the page at me about Purdue is that, like I said, and you have said, incredibly good shot making team, incredibly good 3-point shooting team, literally the best team left in the field besides U of H when it comes to making 3-pointers. And even though the Cougs are better at shooting the 3-ball on average, this Boilermaker team is the best team U of H has seen all season, whether that's regular or postseason, at shooting from deep. They're very, very good. I think to say U of H has an Achilles heel defensively, it's pretty relative. This team doesn't have very many weaknesses defensively. This is a truly elite defensive team, and I don't think I'm overstepping by saying they're right now number 1 defensive efficiency team in the country. But if you've watched the Cougars this season, there have been occasions where opponents' 3-point shooting gave the Cougs problems, or in the cases of losses to Auburn and Texas Tech, were part of an opponent finding a way to beat the University of Houston. It's hard to beat this Cougar team. I think the 32-4 record bears that out. There's a reason only those handful of teams have done it in all those tries to date. I think one of the prerequisites an opponent has to have to beat the Cougars is an offense that's very efficient at putting the ball in the basket, and the Boilermakers really check that box. Braden Smith, Kelvin Sampson, his media availability, talked about how the best point guard left, possibly in the field, very, very good. Also a threat to shoot from deep with CJ Cox, but I think the guy to watch in terms of which individual Purdue player can really light you up from 3, that's Fletcher Lawyer, the literal best individual 3-point shooter left on a team that's still in the NCAA tournament, 21st in the country in 3-point field goal percentage. Again, as you also imagine for a guy who's a high-level 3-point shooter, is really good at the free throw line as well. Trey Kaufman-Renn, we've both said at this point, one of the best scorers in college basketball. Roberts, Francis, and Tugler are going to get a heavy, heavy dose of Kaufman-Renn on Friday night. The scenario that scares me the most about this game is Kaufman-Renn being able to get one or more guys from that trio of Cougar big men in foul trouble. He's not a great free throw shooter, but if he's able to get 2 of the 3 of Roberts, Francis, and Tugler in foul trouble, that'll make winning this game a lot easier for the Boilermakers. I think where this gets more challenging for Purdue, though, and if you want to make the case for Purdue beating the upset, getting the upset, beating the 1 seed here, it's defensively. I mean, they're number 34 nationally in opponent 3-point field goal percentage. That's pretty good. It's top 10%, a little bit better than that of all Division I teams. So their strength defensively lines up with the Cougs' biggest offensive strength. But also the facts of the facts. For the entirety of this season, Purdue has been very not good at keeping opponents from making shots. They're 237th nationally in opponent effective field goal percentage. They're jaw-droppingly bad. 341st to have 364 teams in opponent 2-point field goal percentage. There are no teams left in the Sweet 16 who are worse in those 2 categories than Purdue. So it's fair because the Cougs aren't super efficient at scoring inside the arc, but getting Roberts the ball inside is going to be part of the game plan. There's a decent chance that Francis and or Tugler gets involved there as well, especially the opponent that's proven to be, very deficient defensively in that area. I mean, and also this isn't a team like this Cougar team. They're not going to shoot 45 or 53 pointers. Like they're going to shoot from 3, but they're not a volume shooting team. Like they're going to try to get the ball inside. And I think Purdue has a very hard question to answer, one that they haven't been able to answer all season. Can you stop this team from scoring inside? And if they can get the upset. And if not, which they mostly haven't done, it's fair to ask how they're able to get past that. But again, very good shot making team, a team that's going to challenge the Cougars defensively, and a team more than capable of beating the Cougars.
Yeah, obviously once you reach this point of the season, anyone can beat anyone, right? Once you hit that whole Sweet 16, there's no bad teams left, right? I don't think anyone would say the highest rated team in this Sweet 16 is Arkansas, right? You would say they're the lowest seed left, and they were preseason top 20. I think they were they like 16, 17? I think they were somewhere in there.
Sounds right, yeah.
So like you're not playing any scrubs. So yes, anyone can beat anyone here. I think this matchup is really good for U of H. I'm not saying that I think that U of H is going to go out and stop them and just absolutely, make them feel it. But like of any matchup we could have gotten in the Sweet 16, I'm okay with this one. Like they definitely can beat us. Any team can beat any team in this part of the year. But I still feel that our previous game was going to be a harder, more difficult game than maybe this one.
And I know it's not ideal to be playing, I think, what is minimum a semi-road environment. It's going to be a lot more Purdue fans than there are Houston fans in the building in Indianapolis on Friday night. Like that, I have to acknowledge that. This team's been so good in road situations this year. Like this team has gone in some tough buildings. Like this team has gone into buildings against teams still left in the Sweet 16. Like you went to Lubbock and beat Texas Tech. I don't care who Texas Tech had healthy. Like you beat Texas Tech at their place. You beat Arizona, a team still left at their place. You beat some good ball clubs at their arena. Like you had to fight. Like this team had to fight through adversity. Like this team got better at winning road games. Like this goes back to, I know the Big 12 basketball is good, but remember in the AAC, it was kind of just like, okay, like you were going to get everyone's biggest opposing crowd, best shot. And obviously the Big 12 is a better brand of basketball, but you were getting everyone's best crowd. You were getting everyone's best shot. You were still, even in this rarefied air of this basketball league, you were still a target, and you're a target now. And I think this team is uniquely equipped as any U of H team that I think we've ever watched under Kelvin Sampson to play this road warrior role and win this. Like, not that Purdue can't win it, but just the miscellaneous stuff also, just before we leave the topic of the Boilermakers. They lost 5 of their last 7 regular season games. And granted, with the exception of Indiana, those losses were all to NCAA tournament teams. And Indiana was on the road in Bloomington, big rivalry there. But if you look at those games, in those losses, Purdue couldn't stop any of the high-level opposing offense, and U of H profiles as good, if not better, than all those teams that ran roughshod over Purdue. Like, this is not a good defensive team by Purdue State. Purdue's had some good defensive teams. Purdue doesn't have a Zach Edey this year. As good as Trey Kaufman-Renn is, I'm not being unfair to the guy and saying, like, as a big man, he is a big part of the fact that they've been awful. frankly, keeping opponents from scoring inside. It's not exclusively the fault of Trey Kaufman-Renn, but like not a good interior defensive team. They might be able to overcome that to win this game, but it has to be reiterated. I just will note, you alluded to a second ago, but Purdue has drawn 2 double-digit seeds at this point. They got the opening round 13 seed High Point, which they kind of boat raced and beat, and then they faced McNeese. The tournament's like one of the very few Cinderellas in the round.
And not even really. I mean, round of 32, it's hard to say you're a Cinderella at that point.
We're stretching. We're definitely stretching here. But just will know that they're not as tested in this tournament as you are. Does that decide the game here? No, it's just one of many data points, to talk about with the Boilermakers in this hypothetical matchup. Purdue has faced lots of really good opponents this year. I just think the Cougars have had as hard of a road here. And again, I know U of H fans are annoyed about having to face Purdue in what'll be a quasi home game for them, but every game from here out is going to be a challenge. Kelvin Sampson said today, this game would have been a challenge. This opponent would have been a challenge, whether it was played, somewhere close to Houston, somewhere not close to either team. Like, this is going to be a tough opponent regardless. And I think this team, in the midst of going 10-0 against Big 12 opponents in true road scenarios this year, beating some good opponents in those 10, I think this team is uniquely well positioned to do the dang thing on Friday night. Not saying that's guaranteed they win, but I feel good about this matchup like you do, and I feel good about this team. This team that, like, frankly, has a lot going for it, being able to play the, like, hey, everyone in that building is going to be, like, mad at you. They're going to want you to lose. They're going to be booing you. Like, you're getting the road. Like, this team does very well with its back against the wall, and I think that's the exact scenario we're going into on Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the road aspect of it, look, I'd prefer if it wasn't, right? I don't want to sit here and be like, oh yeah, I think we're going to be fine no matter what. Like, but then, I was kind of thinking about this today as I was making my notes and kind of going through everything and thinking about this. I mean, if you're good enough to make the Final Four, that's going to be in your backyard. Like, it's kind of like, well, I guess it kind of comes out in the wash. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, well, if you can make it through here, you're going to have the home court advantage in a couple of weeks. So I really hope that we are talking about a U of H victory and looking forward to another matchup against a different ACC team or SEC team. Sorry.
And you kind of alluded to it while we're here. We figured we'd take a quick look at the 2 potential opponents that we would see if the Cougars can get past the Boilermakers in the Sweet 16 on Friday night. These 2 potential opponents are the 3 seed, the Kentucky Wildcats, and the 2 seed, the Tennessee Volunteers. Those teams met twice in SEC play. Kentucky actually swept the season series. I missed this one via a 78-73 win in Knoxville and a 75-64 home win in Lexington. Very differently styled teams, Bobby. If, and want to emphasize that it is an if, the Cougs make the Elite Eight, gut reaction, which of these teams would you rather see the Cougars face on Sunday?
Kind of looking at things and just kind of seeing what's going on. Lately, this Tennessee team's been kind of hot, lost to Florida in the SEC championship game. And you don't have an as hot Kentucky team. Kentucky, it felt like it almost felt like this Kentucky team towards the end of the season, they had that big game versus Arkansas at home with Coach Cal returning, and it just kind of went a little downhill from there, if that makes sense. Like, they had some losses leading up to that, but you follow that game up with a loss to Ole Miss, to Ole Miss, and then you have a loss to Texas on the road, a loss to Bama, loss to Auburn. Those 2 you kind of excuse a little bit, but if I'm playing the 2, I think I'd prefer Kentucky. Tennessee is very much like the Spider-Man meme to me with U of H. Neither one plays particularly fast. Both defenses are going to punch you in the mouth. Both teams are, I mean, if we played Tennessee, there's a good chance that game ends like 53-50. Like, neither team, like, every possession's going to take up, you're going to get a shot up with about 3 seconds left to the shot clock. Like, it's just kind of one of those games that would be ugly, would be kind of fun to watch, but I think just wanting U of H to advance, I'd much rather see Kentucky.
I like that we did not go over this before. I like that we have organically different answers here, because look at this matchup. I think I would rather face Tennessee in the Elite Eight. Like, they're both very good teams. They're both teams that will have beaten multiple very good teams to get here. So by their nature, neither of them is going to be an easy matchup. But for me, Kentucky is that weird, challenging one-off matchup and a team that is very, very good at putting the ball in the basket that kind of gives me heartburn. You might remember Mark Pope was BYU's coach last year, and the Cougars beat them in Provo, but it was one of the more stressful road wins of the season. They're very, like, you're not going to see very many teams that will play you stylistically the way Kentucky does. And I think that's part of why, like, the incredible coaching job that Mark Pope's done in his first year, basically having to rebuild the roster from scratch with kind of a combination of portal guys, a couple guys from his former BYU team, but by no means did he like import all of the good BYU players. It's going to be Richie Saunders and a lot of key guys are still at BYU playing for their new coach, Kevin Young. So built this roster from scratch and built one that's a very, very difficult matchup for a single elimination tournament. Yes, a lot of the U of H guys on this roster saw BYU last year in Provo, but to me, losing a home situation, Kentucky is a scarier matchup because you have to beat a team that's very good at hitting shots. Kentucky is very good at hitting shots. Tennessee, good at hitting shots. Tennessee's defense is scary. I like U of H's matchup better against a team that isn't as elite offensively as Kentucky is. Kentucky was, for a 3 seed, they weren't a team expected to have this deep run in the tournament. They're playing hot right now. I think that would be the matchup I'd prefer less. And you know that it's going to be, because I mean, you know, geography lesson here, Kentucky and Indiana border each other. And frankly, it could be in fucking Fairbanks, Alaska, and there would be 6,000 Kentucky fans. I just remember, I knew this going in when Dustin and I went to the Sweet 16 in 2019. And KC, for your average Kentucky fan, it's, you know, 1 or 2 states over. It's not that far. But I was still in awe of just like, we were doing this half sprinting thing because it was raining. We left the arena. The volume of charter buses of just Kentucky basketball fans between the age of like 55 and 80, Bobby. It's insane. Like, you know, kind of conceptually, if you follow the sport like you and I do, that Kentucky basketball is like religion, but the way they will go deep into that arena, not saying Tennessee won't have a lot of fans there too, but Kentucky basketball is an entirely different animal, which again, doesn't concern me as much as you'd think, given how the Cougars have done this year in road or quasi-road environments. But add that on to their offensive ability, that you're going to be playing a second straight game in a row, and that's going to be wherever Kentucky is, where you're getting the road team treatment. So that's why I picked it. I'm kind of glad we had our own reasons for landing.
Yeah, I think I get what you're throwing down there. I think my only comeback to that is thinking about this team. Yes, U of H is one of the toughest teams in the country, if not the toughest team in the country. And it would be tough to kind of play Purdue, a team that's going to knock you around, then Tennessee, another team that's just going to kind of knock you around, back-to-back games. That feels tough, you know, and I don't think U of H will ever get out-toughed, but it's like going in and getting into a fight, and then 2 days later you're into another fight. It's like, but I also understand it's a lot like that Miami game a couple of years ago where they just couldn't miss.
That's a good parallel. That's a very, very good parallel, yeah.
They were heaving everything up, hands and faces from 35 feet. Like, it was crazy, the shots Miami was making in that game, and there's just nothing you can do when you face a team that's hot. A team that can put the ball in the basket and gets hot, that is tough to beat. So I totally see your point there.
Yeah, there's no wrong answer to this. I'm glad.
No, absolutely.
I'm glad our listeners got to hear you and I think, make good cases for either team.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to the pool from the basketball courts. You talk about a Cougar team that was competing in action at an NCAA championship, which obviously will lead the non-men's basketball sports that we're going to cover tonight. Cougar Swimming and Diving sent 4 athletes last week to the NCAA championships in Federal Way, Washington. We saw something happen at this championship that had not happened in the Cougar Swim and Dive program since 1986. And that was senior Hedriana Fongli finishing 6th in the 100-yard breaststroke, earning first-team All-America honors for the first time by a program athlete since Nicole Thibbins earned it in the 100 freestyle in 1986. In terms of your pure finishing place, Fongli's 6th place was the best Cougar swimmer finish at an NCAA championship since 1984, where Ingrid Lawrence finished tied for 4th in the 50 freestyle. Acknowledging that the 2020 team never got a chance to send what would have been at the time the program's largest ever group of athletes to that 2020 championship, which didn't happen because of the onset of COVID-19. an incredible achievement, Bobby. Really, like it is one of those things that I really enjoy coming on here and talking about stuff that hasn't happened in my lifetime. And I'm not a young man, but like that's why you eat the whole hog in terms of like talking all sports, is seeing these young men and young women in the non-football men's basketball sports do things that haven't been done in like 30 years. Like that's really cool. 40 years. My U of H math was a bit off on that. Almost 40 years it's been since someone did what Henrietta Fongley did this past weekend, which I think is pretty freaking cool.
Dude, so cool to have somebody get All-American honors. What an accomplishment. Like you said, since 1986 is the first time it's happened. Just a great thing to just come on here and talk about in the midst of baseball, which we'll talk about, in the midst of another bat and ball sport that exists. There are sometimes with this move to the Big 12 where U of H has looked like it was maybe not quite ready to get the jump in competition. And so it's not always easy to talk about some of these programs that we have on Cullen Boulevard right now, but it's a really, really, really cool moment to see somebody get an All-American honor, no matter the sport, no matter the event. If this was basketball, I've said this probably in the last 3 podcasts, if this was basketball, football, anything like that, we would be celebrating this like it was the coolest accomplishment of all time. And this really is a very, very cool accomplishment.
Yeah. The Cougars as a team scored 16 points, which is the most by the swimming and diving program at an NCAA championship event since 2010. And you also have Michelle McLeod earning honorable mention All-American honors for her 14th place overall finish. She was 6th in the consolation finals in the platform dive on the final day of the event after she finished 11th in prelims of the platform, earning her a path to Saturday's consolation final. McLeod was also 31st in the 3-meter diving championship prelims. Lottie Cullen and Virag Peter also represented the Cougars in Federal Way. Cullen was 44th in the 100 backstroke prelims. Cullen also was 42nd in the 200 backstroke, capping off a really impressive freshman season competing for the Cougs. Junior Virag Peter finished 46th in the 100 breaststroke and 39th in the 200 breaststroke. Both events were the prelims, and Fongley also participated in the 200 breaststroke with Peter, where she finished 38th overall in prelims. I think, like you said multiple times when you've talked about this program, Bobby, I think a program to be admired not just for the achievements of these athletes that, have doing something that hasn't been done in a very, very long time in this program, but also the consistency, like consistent excellence where U of H is right now isn't easy. Like we are not fully resourced in all but 2 of these sports, and to see swimming and diving really not miss a beat going over from being an American program to a Big 12 program, it's really cool. Like cannot say enough good things about what Tanika Jameson has done. And I know it's tough to build a program from scratch, like kind of what Ryan Walker-Merker, your previous head coach, did on the swimming side, but maintaining can also be hard too. Like following a coach who's run in terms of at least producing swimmers, because it's always been a pretty good diving program here, but there's all around in terms of swimmers, it hasn't always been as good. But like following that up, following a very tough act in her first head coaching job, coming off being an assistant at Texas A&M, she's done a really fantastic job. Like consistency to be admired, consistency as much as you can across sports to be emulated as well.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, absolutely. It's one of those programs that not a lot of people pay attention to, but people should if you are a U of H fan, not a U of H basketball fan, not just a U of H football fan, but a U of H fan, you should be excited to see the success that we're seeing here.
Yeah, I'm not gonna tell anyone how to spend their money, but if you talk about programs that like bang for your buck in terms of programs that are using every bit of their resource and really maximizing their potential, I can't think of too many better in this athletic department than what Cougar Swimming and Diving has done under Tanika Jameson.
Absolutely.
And we will go to the baseball field after what was last week an incredibly discouraging start to Big 12 play. You saw Cougar baseball have a positive bounce back, taking 2 or 3 games in Orlando against what you would love to call, Bobby, and I will acknowledge them here as such, the Central Florida Golden Knights. I don't think I would have been overly negative to come into this series and predict that the Cougs would have only taken 1 of 3 here or even get swept for a second straight weekend, given UCF won a road series to start their season, like had good midweek wins over in-state opponents, like 16-4 record, I believe it was, coming into the weekend. So to come back here and talk about a road Cougar series, I think you can only be encouraged by that, even if you're not changing all of your priors in this team. Bobby, give me how you're feeling about last weekend's action, and whenever you're ready, your best hitting and pitching performance from the weekend that was.
Yeah, it's hard not to be excited about what you just saw. Like, sure, I'd be probably more excited if we had swept them or anything like that, but it's not like this UCF team is just like a bunch of scrubs. I think they're pretty solid, but everything looked good from the team. I kind of went back and watched while doing other things. I kind of had it on in the background, if that makes sense. Some of these games.
I was going to say, I used my sick day to catch up on most of the weekend's action.
Yeah, sorry everybody that I was more focused on a basketball team playing in the tournament that I didn't watch these live. That's on me. That's on me, everybody. No, but in all seriousness, I kind of had them on in the background and was listening while, you do dishes and you cook dinner, stuff like that. I would say you looked pretty good in them. The bats looked solid. The game you lost was a game in which your bats didn't look great, right? You only scored 1, but you put up 15 runs over the 3 games. Yeah, I'm not gonna pick nits on this. You gave up, what's that? 12 and then 16. So you score 15, give up 16. It's all about when you score them, right? I think this team isn't going to be a team that's going to come out and dominate, but it is good to see this team winning games. It already feels, I kind of talked about this with Willie Fritz. It might not be a better record, but it feels like this team is already playing better than it was last year. Does that make sense? Like, it feels like this is a better baseball team and we're making the right steps.
Yeah, I would agree. I was going to say, what disappointed me most about the Tech series was the lack of hitting. I don't think I had bought whole hog into this being a good team, not really a trustworthy pitching staff outside of a few key guys, but I thought this was a good hitting team. And I thought this was a lineup capable of doing better than they did in those 3 games against the Red Raiders. And at least you saw that for 2 of the 3 games this weekend, which I thought that was the thing I was most encouraged by. The thing going to last week that was most just kind of like shocked. Like, did I misread what this team was? It was good to see the team hit more to what we saw in the non-conference in Orlando. Yeah.
So I absolutely agree with everything you said there. So my players of the week. So I'm going to go with Aaron Lugo as my offensive player. Had a really good weekend. He had, I want to say, 3 doubles and a home run. Hard not to pick that guy, even though he did get caught stealing on one of them. But he also had a stolen base. So overall, good weekend from Aaron Lugo. I could see anybody else, but that kind of stands out to me when you have multiple multi-base hits and you have you put up at least one multi-bag hit in a per game in a weekend. It's hard for me to go against you. So who's your hitter of the week?
I got a little creative with my definition here because I want to go a bit out of the box. Like, Aaron Lugo is a good pick. I can't debate any of your logic here. I wanted to give Malachi a lot, like kind of a 2-way player of the weekend award here because he had the go-ahead RBI, do a bases clearing triple on Friday night. Like, you kind of had, there was a very concentrated offensive effort. Like, you were down 5-0 and then like 2 innings later you were up 7-5. And Malachi a lot, I think, had the most pivotal hit there. I feel like if Malachi a lot strikes out or pops up there, bases loaded, 1 out, I feel like this weekend is entirely different. So incredibly critical there. And also on Sunday through 2 innings of scoreless relief after your freshman Kendall Hoffman had kind of a shaky Sunday start. So, it's our podcast. I'm giving this award to Malachi a lot for having key performances both on the mound and in the batter's box to get the Cougs the road series win. Hits that perfectly down the line, bases clearing triple to get the 6-5 lead and eventually score the 7th and final run on Friday night to, I think, get a really pivotal, because you had lost the 3 games against Texas Tech and then you lost 2 extremely close games to Sam Houston. You finished the previous game that had been rain or weather delayed in Huntsville and then lost another 1-run game at Constellation immediately after that. So coming off 5 losses in a row, like, it took a lot of mental fortitude to go back out there and, keep playing baseball and to win the Friday opener. As much as Saturday didn't go exactly like expected, there were still positives there too. Like, you still had a good start from Richie Roman there in kind of a new role. So I'll go with my pitch of the weekend and then ask you yours, Bobby. There were other good performances this weekend. I just mentioned Richie Roman, but I couldn't pick anyone but Antoine John for his 5 innings of scoreless relief on Friday. 0 walks, 11 strikeouts, came on like Chris Cinta, who I'm going to mention here. I think is worth an honorable mention, but gave you 5 innings after you got that lead with kind of, the mini 2-inning offensive explosion. And John was rock solid. It would have been an unbelievable performance in any context, with the context of those 5 scoreless innings being, closing out a series defining win. I think no player on this team had a more critical performance on Friday than John's 5 innings to close out the Friday night game. But I wanted to give an honorable mention to Chris Cinta, who's starting to look like the Cougars' go-to lefty out of the pen. Came in for, I think, an uncharacteristically poor Paul Schmidt start on Friday night, calmed things down with an inning and a third of scoreless relief, and then came back Sunday to close that one out with 3 2/3 of scoreless innings to clinch the series.
Yeah, for me, it feels weird giving this award for the weekend to the pitcher who got the loss on the weekend. Like, you only had 1 loss on the weekend, and you're going to say the best pitcher was the pitcher who took the loss. But Richie Roman here, 6 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, goes 6 innings deep. You can't ask much more from your pitcher, right? Give me 6 innings. When he left the game, it's 2-1. You're feeling pretty good about that. Hard for me to say that Richie Roman, who is 0-3 on the season, but I thought that performance is worthy of a call out and to be the pitcher of the weekend. 6 innings pitched, like I said, 2 earned runs. It's hard to argue that he should have done more to, and that's why wins and losses are a terrible stat for pitchers.
Yeah, certainly your best start by a wide margin, and worth highlighting here. I'm glad we highlighted, I think, the 2 best pitching performances of the weekend. Can
we have a quick conversation about something real quick, though?
Yeah, we can always have a quick conversation about something.
Why is Antoine Jean not a starter for this team?
I mean, he didn't do well as a starter last year, Bobby. I don't know if it's mental. I'm not saying there's a guarantee, but like, you have a full season of data of him last year as a starter. I think he's better. I mean,
you're not wrong.
I mean, you might look at him there, like you've looked at Richie Roman there, but I don't know. Like, it seems like he's working pretty well in this role. I would. Yeah. Let me see if they've done like a spot start for him this year, and I just missed it.
I mean, he's got an ERA of 4,
which I think is
9 appearances,
which is skewed by, I think, some really bad performance. I think
he had 1 or 2. I mean, you look at his innings. I'm surprised by the amount of innings. I feel like he's pitched more than 27 innings. Am I crazy for that?
No, I mean, it seems maybe a little lower than I expected.
Yeah.
No, he's not. Nine appearances, no starts from those.
Yeah, no starts. Yeah, 47 strikeouts in 27 innings. I don't know. It just seems a little weird. As I was like kind of going through the weekend, I'm like, why is he not starting? And you're right. Maybe you are using him more. I'm just trying to, it's tough to find game by game on the fly like this while we're talking, but like, maybe you're using him more than once in a weekend and you feel that's a better use of him, give me 4 innings here, give me 3 innings here. That's a better way to use his pitch count over a weekend than just 1 start, maybe. So yeah, it's just an interesting thing that I'm just kind of noticing is Fridays. It seems like our Friday starters have been okay, and they kind of bring him in to bail them out, and that just seems a little backwards. That maybe you should start the guy that is your bailout.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue that, and I would say just looking at his game by game, he's had, I think, the 1 inning and 4 earned runs against Sam Houston from the rescheduled game. I think is probably skewing his stats a bit, but yeah. I don't know. It could be psychological too. Like it could be the guy just works better in this kind of role.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So the week to come, the Cougars will be playing later today against SFA. Not really going to say anything about that because it's going to be final by the time you listen to this. But I think most importantly, the Cougars are back in action at home in Big 12 play. No rest for the weary. The Cougars will be hosting the TCU Horned Frogs Friday through Sunday at Schrader Park. TCU lost 2 of 3 in their opener series against Arizona State at home, won 2 of 3 on the road against Texas Tech in Lubbock last weekend. My main thought is this. There are other good offenses that the Cougars are going to see in Big 12 play this year. I don't know if any of them are definitively better than TCU's. I think this is going to be a real torture test for a Cougar pitching staff that it's not the deepest. And we just got done talking about, is struggling to find guys capable of starting a game that you feel really confident in.
Mhm.
Like it's not a settled situation there. Even if you do kind of have a core of guys who are probably your high leverage situation guys, I mean, no exaggeration. You win 2 of 3 here, it's season defining. I don't think that's realistic. I think 1 of 3 is fine, and 1 of 3 is fine, and then maybe pitch better on the balance than you did against Tech. I think those are my modest hopes, and hopefully in a week's time, hopes that aren't totally dashed by the on-field results.
Right. Yeah, I think, like you said, this TCU offense is a very, very good offense and one that we should kind of be looking out for here.
No doubt. And real quickly, the Cougars opened the outdoor track and field season last Thursday in the one-day Kirk Baptiste Invitational, which is generally this program's curtain raiser for the outdoor season. I think, for me, really 2 performances worth noting. Adam Mason, who's an athlete we've talked about a few different times here in the pod in middle distance events, especially in this most recent indoor season. He set the Kirk Baptiste Invitational meet record in the 800-meter dash. Casey McCoy also ran a personal best time of 13.54 seconds in the women's 100 hurdles, was joined on the podium by her teammates Allie Mack and Tara Johnson. Like any sports early season action, it's more about shaking off the rest than I think a lot of really key performances, but just wanted to note that the quick turnaround of outdoor season is here.
Yeah. It always blows my mind how quickly they go from indoor to outdoor season so fast. It always blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's like any sports early season. It's about shaking off the rust more than specific performances. Even for athletes who competed in identical or very similar type events during indoor season, when you're a high-level athlete, as these ones are, how you train for these events is definitely different. Like the vibe I've gotten also from seeing athlete social media posts in the years of having a Cougar podcast, this social media presence, is that Cougar athletes very much preferred outdoor season to indoor. I wonder if that is the case. I would suspect so. So with all respect to the Kirk Baptiste Invitational, I think the one to watch is the Texas Relays later this week. I think that's going to be where we really see where the Cougs will compete nationally. Texas Relays is always going to be a really stacked field. So excited to see how the Cougars do there. And I'm excited to, Bobby, last but not least, mosey on over with you to the green grass and the links to Cougar Golf Corner. Thank God this is almost done.
Hey, just real quick, we didn't have tennis, right?
No, we're probably gonna get our first win this weekend, so
Okay,
I'll talk
cool.
about it next week. I'll do a catch up on that.
Okay, cool. I was just like, wait a minute, did I miss something?
No, you're good. This is the last one.
Cool.
All right.
Well, welcome everybody to the golf corner or whatever we're calling it, the clubhouse. I don't know, man. We'll come up with a new name at some point. So Cougar men's golf is where we are going to start because they have recently finished 2 tournaments, including one that finished today. So we'll talk about the one that they hosted at Golf Course of Houston in Humble. This one took place last week. We kind of talked about it briefly on the pod, if you recall, Sam. I believe we at least touched on how they were doing. Cougs actually win that tournament. Super exciting there. They beat one ranked team. UNLV was number 16 and you beat them by 32 strokes. So a really good performance there from the team. And now that I'm talking about it, I definitely remember we had these results last week. So I won't go over this too much, but Cougars win there. Really great results for U of H. So always good to win a tournament, no matter who you're playing, no matter how stacked the field is. You did beat, like I said, a top 25 team in UNLV. You also beat by 17 a Big 12 opponent in the TCU Horned Frogs. So exciting to win that tournament there. So this week, and it finished today, it was the Valspar Intercollegiate Invitational And this is, Sam, probably the most stacked field I've ever seen in a tournament before. Let me read you the rankings of the teams that are in this. You have number 2, number 3, number 14, number 7, number 1, number 17, number 23, number 31, number 19, number 8, number 22, number 42, number 21, and number 41. That's insane, man. It doesn't matter. This is a best of the best of the best. And these are fun events to kind of get to go to and kind of watch because you get to stack yourself up against other highly rated teams. And what is fun is U of H beat number 21 Texas Tech by 4 strokes and beat number 41 Wake Forest by 14 strokes. They did not, hold on, I'm double checking. They did not lose to a team that they were ranked better than. So like the Cougs are number 42 and they did not lose to anybody below 42 and beat 2 teams that were ranked higher than them, even though Wake Forest was number 41. You finished 1 stroke off number 22 Tennessee, 2 strokes off number 8 North Carolina. And I take back what I said. Arkansas is unranked and you lost to them by 4. The winner of this tournament was Texas, the number 2 ranked team in the country. And you lost to them by a substantial amount. But this is one of those tournaments that shows you that making it to the NCAA championships is not out of the question for this team.
Yeah, really stacked field that they did that against.
And then you move to the women's side. We spoke with Coach Lasperia, and she was a Florida State Seminole. And so it makes sense that U of H would travel to Tallahassee, Florida, play Seminole Legacy Golf Course up in Tallahassee. And the Cougs could have had a better week. It definitely seems that round 1 and round 3 were the killers for a lot of teams. But when you look at it, Cougs are ranked number 25. Florida State ranked number 7 on their home course, won this event by 42 strokes.
Wow.
Which is ridiculous. The Cougs tied with number 46 Alabama at 38 over. You had some teams in here: Illinois, Indiana, Kent State, Missouri. Unranked teams that kind of beat you by a decent amount, but seems like conditions were tough or the course is really tough. You lost to teams you shouldn't have lost to. You didn't really beat anybody you should have beat. Gonna be interesting to see how this kind of affects the Cougs ranking. Does that just drop us out of the top 25 and maybe back into that 28, 29 region? Cougs go 16 over in round 1. The leader, Florida State, went 2 under. Round 3 is where it's been very odd, where this team has struggled all season. They go 19 over in round 3. Not great, but you kind of look at the individual performances. Maylin Kim finishes in 23rd. Your best player, Natalie St. Germain, 6 over for the tournament, and 11 finished 11th. Started the day in top 5 position, or number 6. Sorry, dropped 5 spots to finish top 15 in 11th. So overall, not a bad performance there.
No. All right, Bobby. I've survived almost 50 minutes of podcasting. I've made through this podcast flu game of sports. Of sorts. Barely, it's getting to the end here. Take us home, buddy.
All right, man. Well, I hope you feel better. But thank you everybody for listening this far into the podcast. As our host emeritus used to say, and former Iowa State fan guest has said, thank you so much for listening. You are our favorite people. But if you have any feedback for us, please, we actually do listen to it and we will take it. If it's good advice, if it's crappy advice, we'll just ignore you. No, I'm just kidding. But you can DM us on Twitter or at SH Podcast, or you can visit us on Blue Sky at podcast.bsky.social. come by, say hey to us over on either one of those. You can also email us if social media isn't your thing, shpodcast@gmail.com. And if you want us to really pay attention to you, you can visit us at Patreon. You can look up SH Podcast on Patreon, patreon.com/SH For as little as $5 a month, you can get some really cool premium content. And you can even go back and listen to old premium content, including our March Madness preview, which I am super proud of the work Sam and I did on that. So please, please, please follow us on all your socials, do all of that, and find us on Patreon, SH Podcast on Patreon. And Sam, that is it. I think we've gone a good 45 minutes on Cougar sports. What do we say, bud?
Go Cougs.
All right. Go Cougs! Let's go!